The blood on Beatrice's dress had dried to a rust-brown stain by the time the wagon wheel cracked clean through, splintering like her life had splintered 3 weeks before when they buried her husband outside Laramie. She did not cry then, standing stone-faced beside that shallow grave while the wind howled across the Wyoming plains. But now, alone on this dusty California road 5 miles outside Stockton with the summer sun beating down mercilessly, and her 2-year-old daughter wailing in the wagon bed, the tears came hot and fast and would not stop. Beatrice Calloway was 24 years old, and she had nothing left but a broken wagon, $43 sewn into her petticoat, and a daughter who did not understand why Papa never woke up after the fever took him. She pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to stop the crying, but her shoulders shook anyway. The wheel lay in pieces around her feet. She had been 3 days on the road from Sacramento, where she had sold everything they owned except what fit in this wagon, heading to Stockton where her late husband's brother supposedly had a farm and might take them in out of Christian charity. Now she was stranded with the sun climbing toward noon, and not another soul in sight on this rutted dirt road that cut through golden grasslands dotted with oak trees. She did not hear the horse approach until it was nearly upon her. Beatrice looked up sharply, wiping at her face with the back of her hand, and saw a man on a bay mare studying her with dark eyes that held something between concern and careful distance. He was tall in the saddle, broad-shouldered, with sun-darkened skin and black hair that needed cutting. He wore a simple cotton shirt rolled to his elbows, dusty trousers, and a hat that had seen better years. His face was weathered but not old, perhaps 30, perhaps a bit more. "Madam," he said, tipping his hat slightly. His voice was deep and steady. "Looks like you have got some trouble there." Beatrice straightened, trying to compose herself even as fresh tears threatened. "The wheel broke. I do not suppose you know where I might find help." He dismounted without answering, looping his reins over a low branch of the nearest oak. He walked to the broken wheel and crouched down, running his fingers over the splintered wood. Help is 5 miles back or 5 miles forward, and this wheel is not going to make either distance. He looked up at her, and she saw kindness in his face that made her throat tighten dangerously. "I have got tools at my ranch about 2 miles north of here. I can fix this for you." "I cannot pay you much," Beatrice said quickly. "I have a little money but did not ask for money." He stood, brushing dust from his hands. "I am Quinn Dawson. I run cattle on about 1,500 acres up that way." He nodded toward the north. "My hands are out on the range today, but I can fetch my wagon and tools, get you and your little one to the ranch, and have this wheel fixed by supper time." Beatrice hesitated. Her daughter had stopped crying and was peering over the wagon's side at this stranger with wide blue eyes. Everything Beatrice had been taught about propriety said she should not accept help from a man she did not know, should not go to his ranch unchaperoned. But propriety seemed like a luxury from another lifetime, and she was so tired she could barely stand. "That is very kind of you, Mr. Dawson," she managed. "My name is Beatrice Calloway. This is my daughter, Caroline." Quinn touched his hat brim again. "Mrs. Calloway." "Pleasure, even under these circumstances." He glanced at the sun. "Let me ride back and get the wagon. Will take me about an hour. You should wait in the shade. They're too hot to stand in the open." She wanted to tell him she was fine, but she was not fine, had not been fine for weeks, and the genuine concern in his voice made something crack open inside her chest. "Mr. Dawson," she said, and her voice broke despite her best efforts. "I am sorry. I do not usually. You do not need to apologize for crying, madam," Quinn said gently. "Looks to me like you have had a hard road. Let me help. No strings, no payment. Just one person helping another the way folks ought to." Beatrice nodded because she could not trust herself to speak. Quinn swung back into his saddle with an easy grace and turned his horse north. "I will be back soon as I can," he called, and then he was cantering away, leaving a trail of dust that glowed golden in the California sunlight. Beatrice lifted Caroline from the wagon and carried her to the shade of the oak tree. She sat with her back against the rough bark and let her daughter curl in her lap, and she stared at the broken wheel and tried not to think about all the other broken things in her life that could not be fixed by a kind rancher with capable hands. True to his word, Quinn returned within the hour driving a sturdy farm wagon pulled by two dappled draft horses. He brought water in a canteen and a cloth-wrapped bundle that proved to contain fresh bread and cheese. "Figured you might not have eaten," he said, offering it to her. Beatrice accepted gratefully. She had not eaten since yesterday evening, trying to make her supplies stretch. Caroline devoured the bread with the single-minded focus of a hungry child, and Beatrice felt some of the tension in her chest ease as she watched her daughter eat. Quinn worked quickly and efficiently, unloading Beatrice's belongings from her damaged wagon into his own. She did not have much: a trunk of clothes, some cooking implements, a few books that had been precious to her husband, a quilt her mother had made before she died. Quinn handled everything carefully, as if he understood these few possessions were all she had left of her old life. "Your wagon is sound except for the wheel," he said as he worked. "Good sturdy construction. Once I replace that wheel and check the axle, should serve you well." "My husband bought it in Ohio," Beatrice said quietly. "Before we headed west 3 years ago, he was always so proud of it." Quinn glanced at her, and she saw understanding in his eyes. He did not offer meaningless platitudes or tell her time would heal all wounds. He just nodded and continued loading the wagon. The ride to Quinn's ranch took them through rolling golden hills studded with dark oak trees. The land had a wild beauty to it that made Beatrice's heart ache. She could see cattle grazing in the distance, moving specks of brown and white against the tawny grass. Quinn pointed out landmarks as they rode: a creek that ran year-round, a stand of cottonwoods that marked his northern property line, a rocky outcrop where mountain lions sometimes denned. "How long have you had the ranch?" Beatrice asked, needing conversation to keep her thoughts from spiraling into darkness. "Coming on 8 years now," Quinn said. "Came out here in 1876 with money I saved working cattle drives from Texas. Bought the land cheap, nobody wanted it much back then. Built the house and barn myself the first 2 years, nearly killed myself doing it." He smiled slightly, the expression softening his weathered face. "Added the hands as the herd grew. Got 4 men working for me now. Good men, mostly. You are not married?" The question came out before Beatrice could stop it, and she felt her face flush. "Forgive me. That was impertinent. No offense taken." Quinn kept his eyes on the road. "I was engaged once back in Texas. She decided ranch life was not for her and married a banker instead. Probably made the right choice. Banking is a sight more comfortable than raising cattle in California heat." There was no bitterness in his voice, just a statement of fact. "I have been too busy building this place to think much about courting since then. Ranching is not easy work, especially when you are doing it alone." Beatrice understood about doing things alone. She had nursed her husband through those terrible last days of fever with no help, had dug his grave herself when the ground finally cooperated, had made all the decisions about selling their homestead and moving on, because staying there without him was impossible. She had been alone in crowds of people, alone in her grief, alone in her terror about what would happen to her and Caroline. "I am heading to Stockton," she said after a moment. "My husband's brother has a farm there. I am hoping he will give us shelter while I figure out what to do next." Quinn was quiet for a long moment. "You have written to him." "This brother. We sent a letter months ago, but we never received a reply. Samuel, my husband, he said his brother could be unpredictable about correspondence. But family is family. I have to believe he will help us." Quinn's jaw tightened slightly, but he said nothing. Beatrice felt a spike of anxiety. "What is it?" "Nothing, madam, just that not all family is as reliable as we might hope." He glanced at her. "You know this brother's name, address?" "Thomas Calloway. He has a farm somewhere outside Stockton, grows wheat. That is all I know." Quinn nodded slowly. "I know most of the wheat farmers around here. I will ask around for you if you like." The ranch came into view as they crested a hill, a sprawling wooden house with a wide porch, a large barn painted red, several outbuildings and sturdy corrals. Everything looked well maintained, built to last. Quinn pulled the wagon up to the house and set the brake. "You and your daughter can wait inside where it is cooler," he said, helping Beatrice down. "I will get started on that wheel." The house surprised her with its tidiness. The main room held a stone fireplace, a solid table with 6 chairs, comfortable-looking furniture that showed wear but not neglect. The kitchen area was clean, dishes stacked neatly on open shelves. It was a bachelor's home, certainly, but not the disaster she might have expected. "Make yourself comfortable," Quinn said, lingering in the doorway. "There is a pump in the kitchen if you need fresh water. The room in the back left is a guest room. You are welcome to rest there if you need to." "You are very kind, Mr. Dawson." Something flickered in his eyes. "I am just doing what any decent person would do, Mrs. Calloway." He settled his hat more firmly on his head. "I will be in the barn if you need anything." Beatrice watched through the window as Quinn crossed to the barn with her broken wheel balanced on his shoulder. Caroline tugged at her skirt, and Beatrice lifted her daughter, holding her close and breathing in the little girl scent of her hair. She walked slowly through the house, noting the details books stacked on a side table, all about ranching and animal husbandry. A photograph on the mantel of a stern-looking older couple who might have been Quinn's parents. A half-finished basket of mending beside a chair. She found herself drawn to the window that looked out toward the barn. She could see Quinn inside, illuminated by the sunlight streaming through the open doors. He had removed his shirt, working in just his undershirt, and she watched the play of muscles in his arms as he worked the damaged wheel. There was something mesmerizing about watching a man who truly knew his craft, who worked with confidence and skill. Beatrice turned away sharply, her face hot. What was wrong with her? Samuel had been dead less than a month, and here she was watching a stranger like some foolish girl. She busied herself with settling Caroline, finding some water for them both, trying not to think about the broad set of Quinn's shoulders or the kindness in his dark eyes. But she found herself at the window again an hour later, and again after that. Each time, Quinn was still working, pausing only to wipe sweat from his face or examine his progress. The man had patience, she would give him that. The sun was lowering in the sky when Quinn finally emerged from the barn. Beatrice met him on the porch, Caroline drowsing on her hip. "How is it going?" "Wheel is beyond repair. The split goes too deep into the wood. I am making you a new one." He wiped his hands on a rag. "Will take me through tomorrow to finish it properly. You are welcome to stay the night here. I will sleep in the bunkhouse with the hands when they come in." "Mr. Dawson, I cannot impose on you like that." "You are not imposing, I am offering." He met her eyes steadily. "Mrs. Calloway, you are tired and your daughter needs a safe place to sleep. I have room, please." The word please undid her. This man who owed her nothing, who had every right to send her on her way, was asking her to let him help. Beatrice felt tears prick her eyes again and blinked them back furiously. "Thank you," she whispered. Quinn's expression softened. "You have been crying again." No, but the denial died on her lips because it was obviously untrue. I am fine. Respectfully, madam, you are not fine. Quinn took a step closer, his voice gentle. I fixed your wagon wheel, or rather, I am fixing it, but seems to me like there is something else broken that needs tending to. Beatrice stared at him. What do you mean? Quinn hesitated, then removed his hat, turning it in his hands. Your heart, Mrs. Calloway. Seems to me like your heart is broken, and I reckon that is a harder thing to fix than any wagon wheel. He looked at her with those steady dark eyes. I know I am overstepping. I know I do not have any right to say this, but if you would let me, I would like to try to fix that too, or at least help you fix it yourself. The words hung in the air between them. Beatrice could not breathe. No one had acknowledged her pain so directly, so simply. Everyone else had offered sympathy that felt hollow, had told her to be strong for her daughter, had suggested she should be grateful Samuel was no longer suffering. But Quinn was offering something else entirely: recognition that she was broken and help to mend. I do not even know you, she said, but her voice was weak. No, you do not. But sometimes strangers can help in ways friends cannot, because strangers do not have expectations about how you should grieve or how quickly you should heal. Quinn put his hat back on. I am not proposing anything improper, Mrs. Calloway. I am just saying that while you are here, while I am fixing your wagon, maybe you can rest a bit. Stop trying to be so strong. Let yourself be sad if you need to be sad. And if you want to talk, I am a decent listener. Beatrice felt something break open inside her chest, something that had been held tight and hard since the moment she realized Samuel was dying. He was only 28, she whispered. We were supposed to have a lifetime together. We were going to build a good life out here, raise a family. And then he got sick, and 2 weeks later he was gone, and I did not even have time to understand what was happening before I was alone with a baby and nothing left of him but some clothes and a trunk full of dreams that do not matter anymore. They still matter, Quinn said quietly. How can they matter when he is dead? Because you are still alive, because your daughter is still alive. Dreams change shape, but they do not have to die just because the person you made them with is gone. Quinn looked out at his land, at the golden hills painted orange by the setting sun. When my father died, I thought my whole world ended. He was the one who taught me about cattle, about ranching, about being a man. Losing him felt like losing my foundation. But then I realized the foundation was not him, it was what he taught me. The love he gave me. That did not die with him. It just changed into something else, something I carried forward. Beatrice wiped at her eyes. I am so tired of crying. Then maybe you need to cry yourself out. Maybe that is part of fixing what is broken. Quinn started to reach for her, then stopped himself, letting his hand fall. Let me make you some supper, Mrs. Calloway, and then maybe you should sleep. Tomorrow will still be there when you wake up, and the day after that, and the day after that. You do not have to figure out everything tonight. That evening, Quinn cooked beans and salt pork and fresh bread that he admitted one of his ranch hands' wives had baked. They ate at his table while Caroline made a mess with her food and laughed at nothing the way small children do. Quinn was patient with Caroline, speaking to her seriously when she babbled at him, making her giggle by pretending to steal bites of her bread. Watching him with her daughter, Beatrice felt something stir in her chest that she could not quite name. Not attraction exactly, that would be wrong, too soon, too much. But gratitude, certainly, and something else. A sense of possibility, perhaps, that life might contain goodness again someday. After supper, Quinn showed her to the guest room. It was simple but comfortable, with a real bed covered in a colorful quilt and a window that looked out toward the hills. Sheets are clean, he said. Changed them last week. There is a basin and pitcher for washing up, and the outhouse is behind the kitchen. This is far too much, Beatrice said. It is a bed and 4 walls. Nothing too much about it. Quinn lingered in the doorway. Mrs. Calloway, I know you are going through something terrible. I know you do not have reason to trust me beyond what I have shown you today, but I want you to know that you are safe here. You and your daughter both. I am not going to ask anything from you except maybe conversation over breakfast, and even that is optional. Why are you helping me? The question burst out of her. You do not know me. You do not owe me anything. Why would you spend your time fixing my wagon and feeding me and offering me comfort? Quinn was quiet for a long moment, considering. My mother used to say that we are all just walking each other home. That we are all struggling with something, hurting from something, and the least we can do is make each other's journey a bit easier. He met her eyes. Maybe I am helping you because someone helped me once when I needed it. Maybe I am helping because it is the right thing to do. Or maybe I am helping because when I saw you crying by that broken wagon, something in my chest hurt for you, and I wanted to make that hurt less if I could. Beatrice felt warmth spread through her, along with a spike of fear. This was dangerous territory. This was how hearts got broken all over again. I am not ready, she whispered. Ready for what? For whatever is happening here, between us. Quinn's expression was gentle. Nothing is happening here except one person helping another. Anything else, if there is anything else, which I am not presuming there is, can wait until you are ready. If that is never, then it is never. I will still fix your wagon. I will still make sure you get safely to Stockton, and I will still think it was worth my time to help you. He left before she could respond, pulling the door closed behind him with a soft click. Beatrice stood in the center of the guest room with Caroline in her arms, staring at that closed door, and for the first time since Samuel died, she felt something other than grinding despair. She felt seen. She felt cared for. She felt like maybe, someday, she might feel whole again. That night she lay in Quinn's guest bed with Caroline sleeping beside her, and she stared at the ceiling and thought about dark eyes and gentle words and strong hands that could fix broken things. She thought about Samuel, about the life they had planned, about the love she had lost. And she cried quietly into the pillow so she would not wake her daughter, cried until she had no tears left, cried until she fell into a dreamless sleep more restful than any she had known in weeks. Morning came with golden light streaming through the window and the sound of roosters crowing. Beatrice woke disoriented, taking a moment to remember where she was. The house was quiet. She rose and dressed, settling Caroline with a biscuit she found wrapped in cloth on the kitchen table, clearly left there for her. Through the window, she could see Quinn already working in the barn. The man must have risen with the sun. She watched him for a moment, then made a decision. She crossed the yard to the barn, Caroline on her hip. Quinn looked up as she entered, his face breaking into a smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Calloway. Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in weeks, thank you." She set Caroline down to explore the barn under her watchful eye. "I wanted to see how the wheel is coming along." "Come look." Quinn led her to his workbench where a new wheel was taking shape. "I am using oak stronger than the original pine wheel. It will last you a good long time if you take care of it." Beatrice ran her fingers over the smooth wood. The craftsmanship was beautiful. Each spoke perfectly shaped and fitted. "You do good work." "I like to think so. Ranching teaches you to be handy out here. You cannot just hire someone to fix every little thing." He picked up a tool she did not recognize and continued shaping one of the spokes. "I should have it done by evening if I keep at it. Can I help?" Quinn glanced at her in surprise. "You do not need to do that." "I know I do not need to. I would like to. Sitting idle makes me think too much, and thinking too much makes me sad." She met his eyes. "Please. Give me something to do." So Quinn taught her to sand the spokes smooth, to check each one for flaws, to feel the grain of the wood and work with it rather than against it. They worked side by side through the morning, talking occasionally, often silent. Caroline played with wood shavings at their feet, building elaborate structures that made sense only to her. "Tell me about your husband," Quinn said at one point, his voice careful. "If you want to, that is. If it does not hurt too much." Beatrice was quiet for a long moment, running the sandpaper over a spoke in long, even strokes. "Samuel was kind," she said finally. "He was not particularly brave or strong or clever, but he was kind clear through. He always saw the best in people. Always believed things would work out for the good." She smiled sadly. "I used to tease him about being naive, but now I think maybe he just had more hope than the rest of us. Sounds like a good man. He was. He deserved better than dying of fever in a half-built homestead in the middle of nowhere." Her hands stilled on the wood. "I was so angry at him for leaving me. Is that terrible? I was angry at my dying husband because I was terrified of being alone." "Grief makes us feel all kinds of things that do not make sense," Quinn said quietly. "I was angry at my father for dying too, angry that he left me to figure out everything on my own. I felt guilty about that anger for a long time, like it meant I did not love him enough. But my mother told me that anger is just another face of love. We get angry at people for leaving because we loved them enough to want them to stay." Beatrice felt tears prick her eyes again, but these were different, softer, less desperate. "Your mother sounds wise." She was. "Died 6 years ago, but I still hear her voice sometimes, telling me to eat more vegetables or stand up straight." Quinn smiled. "I like to think she would be proud of what I have built here. My father, too." They worked in comfortable silence after that, the barn filled with the sounds of tools on wood and Caroline's happy babbling. Around midday, one of Quinn's ranch hands rode in a weathered man in his 50s named Miguel, who tipped his hat to Beatrice and spoke to Quinn in rapid Spanish. Quinn responded in kind, his accent decent if not perfect. They discussed something about the cattle, and then Miguel rode back out. "How many languages do you speak?" Beatrice asked, impressed. "Just English and enough Spanish to get by." "You need Spanish out here. Most of the best vaqueros are Mexican, and they taught me everything I know about cattle." Quinn fitted another spoke into place. "Miguel has been with me from almost the beginning. He was working on a big rancho that went under, and I offered him fair wages and a share of the profits. He is as much a partner as an employee at this point." "That is unusual, is it not? Treating employees like partners, maybe, but it is right." Quinn tested the spoke, found it solid. "I could not run this place without good men working beside me. Seems only fair they should share in the success they help create." Beatrice found herself studying Quinn as he worked, noting the concentration on his face, the careful precision of his movements. This was a man who did everything with intention, who took pride in his work. More than that, he was a man with principles, who treated people fairly and believed in reciprocity. "What are you thinking?" Quinn asked without looking up. "That you are not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I do not know. Someone rougher, maybe. Most ranchers I have met are hard men, worn down by the work and the weather. You are different." Quinn looked at her then, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "Maybe I am just better at hiding the hard parts. Ranching has worn me down plenty. I just do not see the point in letting it make me mean." "I think you could never be mean," Beatrice said softly. "I think kindness is in your bones the same way it was in Samuel's." Quinn held her gaze for a long moment. "You compare me to your husband." "I am not sure if that is a compliment or if it means you see me as a ghost of him." "It is a compliment." Beatrice felt heat rise in her cheeks. "And I do not see you as a ghost. I see you as—" She stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. As what? As someone who makes me feel less alone. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Quinn set down his tools and turned to face her fully. Beatrice, Mrs. Calloway, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without interrupting. She nodded, her heart suddenly racing. I know you are grieving. I know you are vulnerable. I know that anything I say right now could be taking advantage of that vulnerability, and the last thing I want is to make your life harder. Quinn took a breath. But I also know that from the moment I saw you crying beside that broken wagon, something in me recognized something in you. I do not know what to call it. I do not know if it is the start of something or just a moment of connection between two people who have both known loss, but I feel it, and I think you feel it too. Beatrice could not speak. Her throat was too tight. I am not asking you for anything, Quinn continued. I am not expecting anything. I just want you to know that whatever you are feeling, if you are feeling anything at all toward me, you do not need to feel guilty about it. Grief does not mean your heart stops working. Loss does not mean you will never feel anything good again. And if looking at me makes you feel a little less sad, if talking to me makes the weight on your shoulders a little lighter, then I am glad of it. I will take that gladness and ask for nothing more. I do feel guilty, Beatrice whispered. Samuel has been gone less than a month, and here I am in another man's barn, letting that man teach me to fix wagon wheels, thinking thoughts I should not be thinking. What thoughts? She could not tell him. Could not admit that she had noticed the way his hands looked against the wood, or how his voice wrapped around her like a warm blanket, or how her breath caught when he smiled at her. Could not confess that she had dreamed about him last night, confused dreams where he and Samuel were somehow the same person and different people, where she was both devastated and hopeful. Thoughts that make me feel like I am betraying Samuel's memory, she said instead. Quinn reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was rough with calluses, warm and solid. You cannot betray a memory. Memories are not jealous. They do not demand loyalty or fidelity. They just exist, holding space for what was. He squeezed her fingers gently. If Samuel loved you the way I think he did, he would want you to be happy. He would want you to live, not spend the rest of your years frozen in grief. I do not know how to live without him. Then learn. One day at a time. 1 hour at a time, if that is all you can manage. Quinn released her hand but did not step back. And while you are learning, let me help. Let me be your friend, if nothing else. Let me make sure you and Caroline are safe and fed and cared for. Let me fix your wagon wheel and maybe, if you will let me, help you fix the rest too. Beatrice looked into his eyes and saw no deception there, no ulterior motive. Just honest care from a man who barely knew her but had decided she was worth helping anyway. I do not know what I did to deserve your kindness. You do not have to do anything to deserve basic human kindness. That should be freely given, no strings attached. Quinn smiled slightly. Though I will admit, it is easier to be kind to someone I genuinely like. You are strong, Beatrice, stronger than you know. I see it in the way you keep going even when everything hurts. That kind of strength deserves recognition. No one had called her strong in so long. Everyone had called her brave or told her she was holding up well, but no one had acknowledged the raw strength it took to wake up every morning and choose to keep living when death would be so much easier. Thank you, she breathed. They finished the wheel together as the afternoon wore on. Quinn's other hands came in around Supertime Miguel, and 2 younger men named James and Robert, who treated their boss with easy familiarity and tipped their hats respectfully to Beatrice. Quinn introduced her simply as Mrs. Calloway, whose wagon I am repairing, and the men accepted that without question. Over supper, a hearty stew that Miguel's wife had sent over the men talked about the day's work, about cattle prices and weather, and a mountain lion that had been spotted near the north pasture. They included Beatrice in the conversation naturally, asking her opinion on things, listening when she spoke. It was comfortable in a way she had not expected, sitting at Quinn's table surrounded by working men who treated her like a person rather than a fragile widow to be pitied. After the meal, Quinn walked Beatrice back to the house while the hands headed to the bunkhouse. Caroline was already falling asleep on her shoulder. The evening air was warm and sweet, crickets singing in the grass. "Your wheel will be ready tomorrow," Quinn said as they reached the porch. "I will mount it in the morning and test it to make sure it is sound. You should be able to continue to Stockton by afternoon." Beatrice felt an unexpected pang at the thought of leaving. "Then I suppose I should thank you properly for your hospitality. You have been incredibly generous to us." "It has been my pleasure, truly." Quinn paused at the bottom of the porch steps. "Beatrice, I want to ask you something, but I do not want to overstep. Ask, what will you do if this brother of your husband's cannot take you in, or will not?" The question struck at the heart of her deepest fear. "I do not know. I have a little money, maybe enough to rent a room for a few months while I find work, but I do not have skills that pay well, and taking care of Caroline makes it hard to work full days." She swallowed hard. "I've been trying not to think about it too much." Quinn nodded slowly. "If it comes to that, if you need help, I want you to know you can come back here. I am not offering anything inappropriate," he added quickly. "But I could use help around the ranch. Someone to manage the household, do the cooking and cleaning, keep the books. It would be legitimate work with fair pay and a place to live. You and Caroline would have the house. I would stay in the bunkhouse with the hands." Beatrice stared at him. "You cannot be serious." "I am absolutely serious. I know it is not ideal. I know you have plans to find your brother-in-law, but if those plans fall through, you should have somewhere to go that is not a boarding house in a strange town." Quinn met her eyes steadily. "Think about it. That is all I ask." "Why would you do that? You barely know me." "Because I know enough. I know you are hardworking and clever. I know you are good with your daughter. I know you are the kind of person who offers to help sand wagon spokes even when your whole world has fallen apart." He smiled slightly. "And maybe because I like having you here, the house feels less empty with you in it." Beatrice felt her heart twist. This was dangerous. This was temptation. This was a way forward she had not dared to imagine. "I need to find Thomas first. I owe it to Samuel to try." "Of course. I understand that." Quinn tipped his hat. "But the offer stands, regardless. Now you should get that little one to bed. Tomorrow is going to be another warm day." Beatrice carried Caroline inside and settled her into bed, then stood at the window looking out at the darkening hills. She could see lights in the bunkhouse, hear the faint sound of the men talking and laughing. She could see the barn where Quinn had spent his day building her a new wheel, asking nothing in return except maybe her company and conversation. She thought about Samuel, about the guilt of feeling drawn to another man so soon. But underneath the guilt was something else, a tentative hope that maybe Quinn was right. Maybe memories did not demand frozen loyalty. Maybe love did not have to end just because life did. Maybe broken hearts could be fixed if the right person offered to help. Morning came too quickly. Beatrice woke to find Quinn already working, fitting the new wheel onto her wagon with practiced efficiency. She watched from the porch as he worked, and when he finished and turned to give her a thumbs up, she felt her heart skip in a way that had nothing to do with gratitude and everything to do with the way his smile lit up his whole face. By noon, the wagon was ready. Quinn had checked every inch of it, tightened every bolt, even given the horses he had loaned her a thorough examination. "She is ready to roll," he announced. "Should get you to Stockton without any trouble." "I cannot thank you enough," Beatrice said. "For the wheel, for your hospitality, for everything. You do not need to thank me." Quinn loaded the last of her belongings into the wagon, then lifted Caroline up to the seat. "But you do need to promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you will be careful. And promise me that if things go wrong in Stockton, you will send word. I will come get you, no questions asked." Beatrice felt tears threaten again. "You have already done so much. Then I will do more if needed. Promise me, Beatrice." She loved the way her name sounded in his mouth. "I promise." Quinn helped her up onto the wagon seat, his hands steady at her waist. For a moment they were close enough that she could see gold flecks in his dark eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from him. "Take care of yourself," he said quietly. "You are worth taking care of." Then he stepped back and she was gathering the reins, clicking to the horses, rolling away down the road toward Stockton. She looked back once and saw Quinn standing in his yard watching her go, his hat in his hands, and something in her chest pulled tight and painful. Stockton was larger than she expected, bustling with commerce and noise. Beatrice drove through the streets feeling overwhelmed by the crowds and chaos after 2 days of quiet ranch life. She stopped at a general store to ask after Thomas Calloway and was directed to a farm about 3 miles south of town. The farm, when she found it, was smaller than she had hoped. A shabby house with peeling paint, a leaning barn, fields that looked poorly tended. Beatrice felt unease settle in her stomach as she drove up the rutted path to the house. A man emerged as she pulled to a stop, tall and thin with thinning hair and a sour expression. "What do you want?" he called, not bothering with a greeting. "Thomas Calloway." Beatrice climbed down from the wagon, lifting Caroline after her. "I am Beatrice, Samuel's wife, your sister-in-law." Thomas's expression did not soften. "Samuel is dead then?" "Yes, 3 weeks ago he had fever." Beatrice held Caroline closer. "I wrote to you months ago but never received a reply. I was hoping, that is, Samuel said you want money." Thomas spat in the dirt. "Or a place to stay, or both." "I do not need money, just temporary shelter while I find work and figure out where to go next." "Samuel always spoke so highly of you, said you were—" "Samuel was a fool who did not know me half as well as he thought." Thomas looked her up and down with an expression that made her skin crawl. "I barely have enough to keep myself fed. I am not taking in his widow and brat on top of it." The words hit like a physical blow. "Please, I would work. I can cook and clean. I would not be a burden. You already are a burden, showing up here expecting charity because you married my idiot brother." Thomas turned back toward his house. "I do not have room for you. Find somewhere else to be pitiful." "Thomas, please, get off my property before I set the dogs on you." Beatrice stood frozen, Caroline whimpering against her shoulder. She had been counting on this, had built her entire plan around Thomas's charity, on blood ties meaning something. Now she was stranded in a strange town with nowhere to go and a dwindling supply of money. She climbed back into the wagon with shaking hands and drove back toward Stockton. Her mind raced, trying to formulate a plan. She could find a boarding house, but how long would her money last? She could look for work, but who would hire a widow with a small child? Quinn's words echoed in her mind. "If things go wrong in Stockton, you will send word." No, she could not do that, could not run back to Quinn and take advantage of his kindness any more than she already had. She needed to be strong, to figure this out on her own, to prove she could survive without depending on anyone. But as she drove through Stockton's streets, asking at businesses about work and being turned away again and again, Beatrice felt despair settle over her like a heavy blanket. By evening she had found a boarding house that would take her, but the landlady wanted a week's rent in advance and made it clear children were barely tolerated. Beatrice sat in the tiny, dingy room she had rented and counted her remaining money. If she was very careful, very frugal, She might have enough for 3 weeks. 4 if she stopped eating much herself. And then what? Caroline cried herself to sleep that night, overwhelmed by the strange place and her mother's obvious distress. Beatrice held her and rocked her and tried not to let her own tears fall. She had been so sure coming to Stockton was the right choice. So certain family would mean something, would provide a safety net. She had been wrong. 3 days later, Beatrice swallowed her pride and sent a telegram to Quinn's ranch. The words were simple. Thomas cannot help. Need work if offer still stands. B. Calloway. The reply came within hours. Coming to get you tomorrow. Tell me where. Q. Beatrice sat in the boarding house with that telegram clutched in her hands and cried tears of relief and shame in equal measure. She was failing at being independent. She was running to a man she barely knew. She was making choices Samuel would never have approved of, but she was also surviving. She was also keeping Caroline safe. She was also accepting help when she needed it, which took its own kind of strength. Quinn arrived the next morning driving his wagon with Miguel riding alongside. He found Beatrice at the boarding house, her few belongings already packed. When he saw her, something fierce crossed his face. Did he hurt you, Thomas? No, he just refused to help, said he could barely feed himself and did not want to take on Samuel's widow and child. Beatrice tried to smile but failed. So much for family loyalty. Quinn's jaw tightened. Some people do not deserve to be called family. He loaded her trunk into his wagon. I am sorry, Beatrice. I am sorry you came all this way for nothing. It was not for nothing. At least now I know I cannot depend on the Calloway family. She climbed up onto the wagon seat, settling Caroline beside her. And I know I can depend on you. That has to count for something. The ride back to Quinn's ranch felt different than the ride to Stockton. This time Beatrice was not a temporary visitor, not someone passing through. This time she was coming as an employee, as someone who would live and work on Quinn's land. It should have felt like failure, but instead it felt like possibility. I meant what I said, Quinn told her as they drove. You will have the house, all of it. I will stay in the bunkhouse. You will manage the household, cooking, cleaning, keeping the books, making sure supplies are ordered. I will pay you fair wages, same as I pay Miguel. Anything you save is yours to keep, to use however you want. If you decide to leave eventually to make a different life somewhere else, I will not stand in your way. And if I do not want to leave, the question came out before Beatrice could stop it. Quinn glanced at her, his expression unreadable. Then I suppose you will stay. They settled into a routine over the following weeks. Beatrice took over managing Quinn's household with a thoroughness that surprised even herself. She cleaned the house from top to bottom, organized his chaotic collection of paperwork, planted a vegetable garden behind the kitchen. She cooked hearty meals for Quinn and his hands, learning what each man liked and disliked. She kept Caroline entertained and happy, letting her daughter run wild in the safe space of the ranch. And she talked to Quinn. Every evening after supper, after the hands had gone to the bunkhouse, Quinn would linger on the porch and they would talk. About everything and nothing. About their pasts and their fears and their dreams. About the ranch and the cattle and the way the hills looked when the sun set just right. I never wanted to be a widow, Beatrice told him one evening, watching Caroline chase fireflies in the yard. I never imagined I would be alone at 24. You are not alone, Quinn said quietly. You have Caroline, and you have me, for whatever that is worth. It is worth a great deal. Beatrice looked at him, at the way the last light caught in his hair. You have given me hope again. I did not think I would feel hope. You deserve hope. You deserve happiness. Quinn leaned against the porch railing. Beatrice, I need to tell you something, and I am afraid it might make things complicated. Her heart began to race. What is it? I am falling in love with you. The words were simple, direct, devastating. I tried not to. I tried to keep my distance, to remember you are grieving and vulnerable. But I cannot help it. When you smile at something Caroline does, when you hum while you are cooking, when you argue with me about the best way to organize the barn, I fall a little more in love with you every time. Beatrice could not breathe. Quinn, let me finish, please. He turned to face her fully. I am not asking you to love me back. I am not asking you to be anything other than who you are. I just need you to know how I feel, because it is getting harder to hide it, and I do not want there to be lies between us. He paused. If this makes you uncomfortable, if you want to leave, I will help you. I will give you enough money to start somewhere new, no strings attached. But if you want to stay, I will keep my feelings to myself as much as I can, and we can just be friends. Whatever you need. Beatrice stood and crossed to where he leaned against the railing. She stood close enough to touch him but did not. What if I do not want you to keep your feelings to yourself? Quinn's eyes widened. What are you saying? I am saying I feel it too, this thing between us. I have been feeling it since you fixed my wagon, maybe since you first stopped to help me. She took a shaky breath. I feel guilty about it. I feel like I am betraying Samuel. But I also cannot deny that when I am with you, I feel alive in a way I have not felt in so long. Beatrice, I am not ready for anything serious. I am still grieving. I still love Samuel and probably always will. She finally reached out, placing her hand over his where it rested on the railing. But I think maybe I could love you too. Maybe I am already starting to. And that terrifies me, but it also feels right in a way I cannot explain. Quinn turned his hand over, linking his fingers with hers. We can go as slow as you need. We do not have to call it anything. We do not have to make promises or plans. We can just be together and see what happens. What if people talk? A widow living on a ranch with an unmarried man. Let them talk. Anyone who matters will understand, and anyone who does not understand does not matter. Quinn squeezed her hand gently. I just want you to be happy, Beatrice. However that looks, whatever that means. If being close to me makes you happy, then be close. If you need space, take space. I am not going anywhere. Beatrice felt tears slip down her cheeks, but for once they were not tears of grief. How did I get so lucky to find you? I think I am the lucky one. Quinn reached up with his free hand and gently wiped away her tears. You are the strongest, bravest woman I have ever met, and the fact that you are letting me be part of your life is a gift I do not take lightly. They stood there on the porch as night settled over the ranch, holding hands like tentative teenagers, not kissing or embracing but simply being together. Caroline eventually tired of chasing fireflies and came to wrap herself around Beatrice's legs, and Quinn scooped her up and carried her inside to bed with a naturalness that made Beatrice's heart ache in the best way. The weeks turned into months. Summer faded into autumn, the golden hills turning brown under the relentless California sun. Beatrice continued managing Quinn's household, but the boundaries between employee and family blurred. She and Quinn grew closer by increments, a touch that lingered a moment too long, a look that held more meaning than words, quiet conversations that stretched late into the night. Miguel noticed, of course. The boss is happier now, he told Beatrice one day while she was preparing lunch. You are good for him. He is good for me too, Beatrice admitted. Samuel, your husband, he would want you to be happy. No, Beatrice was startled by the direct question. I think so, I hope so. Then be happy. Miguel shrugged. Life is too short for guilt. I know this. I lost my first wife young, thought I would never love again. But I did love again, and she gave me 3 beautiful children. The love we have for those we lost does not disappear when we love someone new. It just makes room. Makes room, Beatrice repeated softly. I like that. She thought about that conversation later as she watched Quinn work with a difficult horse in the corral. He was patient with the skittish animal, moving slowly, speaking in a low voice, never forcing or frightening. It was the same patience he showed her, the same gentle persistence. "You are staring," Quinn called, catching her watching. "I am admiring," she called back, not embarrassed to be caught. Quinn led the horse to the fence and joined her, his shirt dusty and his face flushed from exertion. "What are you admiring exactly?" "Your patience. Your kindness. The way you do not give up on things that are broken." "I do not think you are broken, Beatrice. I think you are healing, which is different." She reached up and brushed dust from his shoulder, letting her hand linger. "I am healing because of you." "No. You are healing because you are strong enough to heal. I am just fortunate enough to be here while you do it." Beatrice looked into his eyes and made a decision. "Kiss me." Quinn went still. "Are you sure?" "I am sure." He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to change her mind. When his lips met hers, it was gentle and sweet and absolutely nothing like kissing Samuel, which somehow made it okay. She was not replacing her dead husband. She was starting something new with a different person, and that difference was important. When they parted, Quinn rested his forehead against hers. "I have wanted to do that for months." "I know, I could tell," Beatrice smiled. "I have wanted it too, I was just afraid." "Are you still afraid?" "Terrified, but I am also happy, and I think happiness is worth the fear." They told Caroline that evening that Quinn would be moving back into the house, into the bedroom at the far end of the hall from where Beatrice and Caroline slept. It was a statement of intention, a public acknowledgement that they were becoming something more than employer and employee. The hands took the news with easy acceptance. Miguel clapped Quinn on the shoulder and told him it was about time. James and Robert teased him mercilessly, but with obvious affection. No one seemed scandalized or judgmental. Out here, on the edge of civilization, people made their own rules about love and family. That winter was the happiest Beatrice had known in years. She and Quinn grew closer still, their relationship deepening from tentative new love into something solid and real. He proposed to her on Christmas morning, presenting her with a simple gold ring he had ridden to Sacramento to buy. "I know it has not been a year yet since Samuel died," he said, kneeling in front of the fireplace while Caroline clapped her hands. "I know people will talk. But I love you, Beatrice Calloway, and I want to spend my life with you if you will have me. I do not want to wait out of some arbitrary sense of propriety when we both know what we want." "Yes," Beatrice said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, of course, yes." They married in January of 1885. A simple ceremony with Miguel and his wife as witnesses and Caroline as a delighted flower girl. Beatrice wore a blue dress Quinn bought her in Stockton, and Quinn wore his best suit, and they stood in the small church and promised to love each other for as long as they both lived. "I am not trying to replace Samuel," Quinn told her on their wedding night as they lay together in his bed, their bed now. "I hope you know that. I do know that. And Samuel is not replaced. He will always have a piece of my heart." Beatrice traced patterns on Quinn's chest. "But you have the rest of it. You have given me a life I never imagined I could have again. You fixed my wagon and my heart both." "We fixed your heart together," Quinn corrected. "I just held space while you did the work. However it happened, I am grateful." Beatrice kissed him. "I love you, Quinn Dawson." "I love you too, Beatrice Dawson." She smiled at the new name. "That will take some getting used to. We have time. We have all the time in the world." The years that followed were good ones. The ranch prospered under their joint management. Beatrice proved to have a head for business that complemented Quinn's practical ranching knowledge. They expanded the herd, bought additional land, built a new barn and a larger bunkhouse for the growing crew of hands they employed. Caroline grew from a toddler into a bright, energetic child who followed Quinn everywhere, convinced he hung the moon. He was patient with her endless questions, teaching her to ride and rope and care for animals. When she started calling him Papa, Quinn cried happy tears and told Beatrice it was the greatest honor of his life. Beatrice got pregnant in the spring of 1886, and Quinn treated her like she was made of glass until she threatened to hit him with a frying pan. Their son was born in December, a squalling red-faced baby they named Samuel Quinn Dawson in honor of two good men. "Are you sure?" Quinn asked, holding his son with careful reverence. "I do not want you to be sad every time you say his name." "I am not sad. I am grateful that I got to love one Samuel, and now I get to love another." Beatrice reached up and touched Quinn's face. "My first husband would be happy knowing his name goes on, and he would be happy knowing I found love again with someone who treats me well." 2 years later, they had a daughter they named Rose, and 2 years after that, another son named Michael. The house filled with noise and laughter and the chaos of children, and Quinn thrived in the middle of it all. He was a devoted father, patient and loving, always ready with a story or a horseback ride. On their 10th anniversary, Beatrice and Quinn took a rare evening alone, sitting on the porch and watching the sun set over their land. 4 children were inside being supervised by Miguel's teenage daughters, and the ranch was quiet. "You ever regret it?" Beatrice asked. "Taking in a crying widow with a broken wagon?" "Never, not once." Quinn took her hand. "That day changed my life. You changed my life." "You changed mine too. You saved me, Quinn. I do not know where Caroline and I would be if you had not stopped to help. You would have survived. You are too strong not to, but I am glad I got to be part of your survival, part of your healing." Quinn kissed her knuckles. "I am glad I got to love you. Fix me," Beatrice said softly. Quinn looked at her in confusion. "What?" "That is what you asked me that first day. You said you fixed my wagon wheel and asked if you could fix my heart too." She smiled. "You did fix it. You fixed me without making me feel broken. You loved me back to wholeness. You were never broken, Beatrice. You were grieving, which is natural and human, but even in your grief you were whole. You were perfect." Quinn pulled her close. "I just held up a mirror so you could see what I saw: a strong, beautiful, capable woman who deserved to be happy." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the light fade from gold to orange to purple. Somewhere in the house, one of the children laughed, and Caroline called out asking if she could stay up late. Quinn called back that no, it was bedtime, and there were exaggerated groans of disappointment. "We have a good life," Beatrice said. "We have a beautiful life," Quinn agreed. "And it started with a broken wagon wheel and a woman brave enough to accept help from a stranger." "Not a stranger, not really." Beatrice leaned her head on his shoulder. "I think we were always meant to find each other. Samuel brought me west, but you gave me a home. Samuel gave you your first great love. I am just lucky enough to be your second." "Not second. Different." Beatrice looked up at him. "I do not rank my loves. I just hold them both, grateful for what each gave me. Samuel gave me Caroline and taught me I could be strong. You gave me 3 more beautiful children and taught me I could be happy again." Quinn kissed her forehead. "I could not have asked for a better wife or a better life. Every day with you is a gift." The years continued to roll by, measured in seasons and harvests and children growing. Caroline married at 19 to a good man from a neighboring ranch, and Beatrice cried happy tears as she watched her daughter promise to love someone the way Beatrice had loved twice. Samuel grew into a capable young man who took naturally to ranching, working alongside his father with pride. Rose proved to have her mother's head for numbers and took over managing the ranch's accounts. Michael decided he wanted to be a doctor and left for medical school back east, promising to return and serve the community that raised him. Quinn and Beatrice grew old together, their hair going gray, their bodies slowing down but their love never diminishing. They sat on the same porch where they had first admitted their feelings, watching grandchildren play in the yard where their children had played before. "Do you remember when we met?" Beatrice asked one evening when she was 60 and Quinn was 66. "The broken wagon. I remember everything about that day. The way you were crying so hard you did not hear me approach. The determination in your eyes when you said you would figure it out on your own. The way Caroline looked at me like she was trying to decide if I was trustworthy." Quinn smiled. "I fell in love with you that very day, I think. I just did not know it yet. I was so broken then, so lost." "You were grieving, but you were never lost. You always knew where you needed to go. You just needed help getting there." Quinn took her hand, his grip still strong despite his age. "I am grateful every day that I was the one who got to help you, that I was the one you chose to build a life with. Best choice I ever made, marrying you." "Second best," Quinn corrected gently. "Your first choice, marrying Samuel, gave you Caroline and brought you west. Every choice you made led you to me. I am grateful for all of them." That night, lying in bed with Quinn's arms around her, Beatrice thought about the strange path her life had taken. From Ohio to Wyoming to that dusty California road where her wagon wheel broke and changed everything. From desperate widow to beloved wife. From broken to healed to happy. She thought about Samuel sometimes still. Remembered him with fondness and gratitude. But the grief had long since transformed into something gentler, a bittersweet awareness that life was fragile, and love was precious, and loss was inevitable. She had learned to hold both her loves in her heart, honoring what was while celebrating what is. Quinn stirred beside her. "What are you thinking about? How grateful I am. For you, for our children, for this life we built together. For that broken wagon wheel that brought us together." "Best broken wheel in history," Quinn murmured sleepily. Beatrice laughed softly. "You fixed so much more than a wheel that day." "We fixed each other," Quinn said. "That is what love does. It does not erase the broken places, but it helps heal them. It makes room for both grief and joy. It proves that endings can lead to new beginnings. I love you, Quinn Dawson." "I love you too, Beatrice Dawson. Always have. Always will." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, two people who had found each other when both needed finding. Outside, the California night settled over the ranch they had built together. And somewhere in the barn, the wagon wheel Quinn had made all those years ago stood as a reminder that sometimes the most broken things lead to the most beautiful repairs. Years later, when they were both gone and their children told the story of how their parents met, they would talk about fate and destiny and meant to be. But Beatrice and Quinn knew the truth was simpler and more profound. They met because one person saw another person in pain and decided to help. They fell in love because they both understood that grief and joy could coexist, that you could honor the past while embracing the future, that broken hearts could heal if you were brave enough to let them. The ranch prospered for generations after Quinn and Beatrice were gone, passed down to their children and grandchildren, who carried on the legacy of kindness and hard work and love. And somewhere in the barn, carefully preserved, that wagon wheel remained a testament to the day a rancher saw a woman crying over something broken and fixed not just her wagon, but her heart and her life and her hope for the future. It was a love story that started with tears and ended with joy, with decades of happiness in between. A love story about healing and second chances, and the courage it takes to risk your heart again after it has been shattered. A love story that proved true, what Quinn had always believed, that we are all just walking each other home, and the least we can do is make each other's journey a little easier. Beatrice had been crying over a broken wagon when Quinn found her, but by the time their story ended, she had cried far more tears of happiness than sorrow. And that, Quinn always said, was the best kind of fix. There was the kind that turned tears of despair into tears of joy, broken things into beautiful things, and strangers into family. Their tombstones stood side by side in the small cemetery on the hill overlooking their ranch. The inscriptions simple: Quinn Dawson, 1848–1923, beloved husband and father Beatrice Calloway Dawson, 1854–1922, beloved wife and mother, but those who knew their story understood there was so much more to say. They were two people who found each other when both needed finding. Two people who proved that love does not end with death, it transforms, making room for new love while honoring what came before. Two people who built a beautiful life from the ruins of heartbreak. And it all started with a broken wagon wheel, a crying woman, and a kind man who stopped to help. The ranch continued on, generation after generation, each new Dawson hearing the story of how it all began. How their great-great-grandmother Beatrice came west with her first husband and lost him to fever. How she was stranded on a dusty road with a broken wagon and a broken heart. How Quinn Dawson rode up on his bay mare and offered to fix more than just wood and iron. The story became legend in the family, a reminder that helping someone in need could change not just their life but your own. That love could bloom in unexpected places. That broken things could be mended if you were patient and kind and willing to do the work. And somewhere in the barn, that wagon wheel remained, carefully preserved by each generation. Children would touch it and ask about it, and their parents would tell them the story. About the woman who cried and the man who helped. About a love that healed two broken hearts and created a legacy that lasted long after both were gone. It was, in the end, a simple story. But simple does not mean small. Sometimes the simplest stories, one person helping another, two hearts finding each other, love growing from grief, are the most profound. Beatrice never forgot that day on the road outside Stockton. Even when she was old and gray, she could close her eyes and remember the exact moment she looked up through her tears and saw Quinn sitting on that bay mare, looking at her with concern and kindness. She could remember thinking he was just another stranger passing through. She had no idea he was her future, her happiness, her second chance at love. Quinn never forgot it either. He would tell anyone who asked that it was the luckiest day of his life, the day he decided to stop and help a crying woman with a broken wagon. He had no idea he was meeting his wife, the mother of his children, the love of his life. He just knew someone needed help, and he had the ability to give it. That is the secret, Quinn would tell his grandchildren when they were old enough to understand. You help people not because you expect something in return, but because it is the right thing to do. And sometimes, if you are very lucky, helping someone else ends up helping you too. Beatrice would add, and you let people help you, even when you are proud or scared or do not think you deserve it, because we all need help sometimes. We all need someone to fix our broken wheels and broken hearts. Together, they created something beautiful from something broken. Together, they proved that endings were really just beginnings in disguise. Together, they lived a love story that started with tears and ended with a legacy of kindness, family, and enduring love. And it all began with a simple question, asked by a rancher to a grieving widow on a dusty California road. "Let me fix your wagon. And maybe, if you will let me, I can help fix your heart too." She let him. And in doing so, they both found exactly what they needed, not someone to complete them, but someone to walk beside them. Not someone to erase the past, but someone to build a future with. Not someone to fix them because they were never truly broken, but someone to help them heal and grow and love again. That was the story of Quinn and Beatrice Dawson. A love story, a healing story, a story about second chances and the courage to take them. A story that began with something broken and ended with something beautiful. And in the barn of that California ranch, the wagon wheel stood as a reminder that sometimes the things we think are endings are really just beginnings, if we are brave enough to see them that way.